about indigenous aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, which is being manufactured right now. In fact, the basin trials were successfully conducted for INS Vikrant just recently, and the sea trials are expected in somewhere in the first quarter of 2021, after which it might take another year before this indigenous aircraft carrier is commissioned into Indian Navy. So we'll look at all the aspects, the journey so far, and the indigenous aspect specifically as to how, once again, the Indian Navy seems to have worked really hard to ensure that the Make in India program, the Make in India aspect, is being focused upon. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with our defense expert today. Retired Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha is with us. We also have with us Commander Abhijit Singh, who is head of the Maritime Policy Initiative of ORF. And we have Mr. Ajay Banerjee also with us, the defense correspondent of the Tribune. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha Television. And let me begin with you, Ajay. And let's start by looking at the journey as far as this IAC-1, that's the indigenous aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, is concerned. There are several firsts attached here.
Vishal, first of all, let us start off by saying that India will become, or has become, one of the few countries which has the prowess to make an aircraft carrier of its own. It is not a small feat, it's a very big feat. Now comes the bad part of it. We have taken 70 years since independence to do that. And we laid the keel of the INS Vikrant in 2009, 11 years since the keel laying. The carrier should have floated out and be commissioned at least 5 years behind. It would have been done by 2015. But again, we did this for the first time, so there's a lot of learning process. It is not an easy thing to do. It is not like building any other warship. And keep in mind, as just 4 years ago, we were the only country in Asia to be operating an aircraft carrier. The Chinese didn't have it. The Japanese had a helicopter carrier called the Izumo class. And the American warships floating around in the Asian region were the only American carriers in the Asian region. India was the only Asian country to be operating a carrier just 4 years ago. Okay, historically, we have been operating a carrier since 1960s. And in the past 4 years, what has happened is China has built two, and the third is ready to come out. And we are still building one. That is the bad part of it.
Okay.
We are slow. Okay, China was also like us, had never built an aircraft carrier, but they've come out with three. The two are already out. The third is coming out anytime. Now the good part, again, the good part is that INS Vikrant will prove the Atmanirbharta process, which we have initiated. Okay, the fighter jets will come from outside, no issue. The LAC naval version, the Navy has said that they will accept it. If it comes on the deck of the INS Vikrant, it will be a great achievement. We have already the close-in warfare weapons on board the Vikrant, which are of the Indian origin, which will include the BrahMos and the LR-SAM. So these are the positives I see, and I'm sure that we will progress quickly. The quickly the government clears the third aircraft carrier, that is called the IAC-2, that is the Indian Indigenous Aircraft Carrier 2. We will be better off as a country and as a naval prowess. That's how I see it, Vishal.
Okay. We'll look at the IAC-2 aspect out there as well, but that's the summary nicely put there by Ajay. Let me bring in Admiral Shekhar Sinha here. Admiral Sinha, from your perspective, the way we worked upon INS Vikrant, obviously there are some delays, as Ajay was pointing out, but there are several firsts as well attached, and the very fact that we're going to build it ourselves, and we have almost completed the process now, that seemingly is a feather in the cap out there.
Well, thank you, Vishal, for getting me on your program. I think that as Ajay rightly mentioned, it is a big achievement, Vishal, because you should not see it only as a ship which is floating in water. If you go inside, there are compartments, there are layers, there are decks are down right below the sea level at about under the sea by 7 meters. So you're looking at about 6-7 story building, Vishal, and all compartments have been fitted out. It has to go in a sequence. We did not have a very good engine for it. Initially, the plan was that we might put the Kaveri engine for the ship. So that got delayed further. Then finally, we got the LM2500, the good and proven engine. The third point is that, the aircraft systems are by itself, they require very high degree of accuracy, and they have to integrate it onto the ship systems, particularly the power supply, the transmission systems, the flying control systems, launching of aircraft, mechanism, feedback, So this is a big thing. And I have really no qualms that, it has taken 10 years. Yes, I was there for keel laying. I was also there for launching of the ship with then Defense Minister's wife. She broke the coconut. But the delays are for many reasons. Firstly, if the funding is, inadequate to meet all the new acquisitions that you're doing, then Navy has to prioritize how much money to be put. And in that bargain, some money was little late to go, and therefore there has been delay. The COVID has delayed it a little bit. But to get the basin trials out in one shot and fix up all that has been found out in next 4 months, as I said, that in first quarter, maybe April, the trials will start. I think it's a big achievement by any standard, even if you take it from the Americans. Not forget that we are driving the. So that is what it is, Vishal.
Okay. So definitely it is a big achievement out there. Commander Abhijit, from your perspective, and if we want to put this entire development into the maritime policy metrics out there, the importance and the significance of having another aircraft carrier, and as Ajay was pointing out, the jury is out as far as IAC-2 is concerned. Indigenous part is one definitely important part, but having the aircraft carrier is really, really important.
Look, in a strategic matrix, the Indian Navy has always held that aircraft carriers are imperative. One of the things about the way we look at security in the Indian Ocean region is that we say that we are the preeminent power in the region. We need to have an asset that can dominate the near seas. And therefore, it's important that we have aircraft carriers. Unfortunately, what's happened is that in the recent few years, there seems to have, there is the seeming skepticism about aircraft carriers, not just in India, but I see this also in the US and, for that matter, there are also some Japanese analysts who sort of point out that the aircraft carrier is now more or less an obsolete platform. That it does not somehow, one, is very expensive, and second, it's somehow vulnerable. In the littorals, it can be taken down by torpedoes, or for that matter, long-range missiles. And the Chinese are developing the aircraft, the anti-carrier ballistic missiles. So in the circumstances, it's not quite prudent to be putting in so much of money into the aircraft carrier. But look, the fact of the matter is that if there is one platform that can give you comprehensive access to the adversary's littorals, and it can give you tactical air power that you absolutely need to have sea control, you need the aircraft carrier. And there has been this controversy for a while. The Chief of Defense Staff some time back had observed that, in his opinion, it was more important for the Navy to have submarines than have aircraft carriers. And the Navy chief, I will not say that this was sort of rebuttal, but in a press conference a couple of days back, noted that the Navy is completely clear about the necessity and the utility of a third aircraft carrier, and therefore we will not just have the second one, which is the Vikrant, but we will also make a pitch for the Vishal. Now, I read in a article that I think was published only yesterday or today that the Modi government seems to be thinking positively in terms of granting Navy the wish for a third aircraft carrier, because they deem China to be a big threat in the Indian Ocean region. Okay. You see, the fact of the matter is that the Navy's aircraft carrier, the Navy's strategy revolves around the aircraft carrier. It's the beating heart of our strategy. And if we just take the aircraft carrier out of the equation, the Navy will be a shadow of the force that it really is. You could do sea denial in the seas, but you will not be as effective as you could be in dominating our spaces and projecting power in the far seas.
Okay, definitely the importance of aircraft carrier is completely underscored out there, as Commander Abhijit is pointing out. Ajay, your views on the strategic importance of the aircraft carriers and this entire concept of having three aircraft carriers or operating three carrier groups out there?
Vishal, see, at any given point of time, sometime in the late 40s and early 50s, we were drawing up our first plans. Commander Abhijit or Admiral Sinha can correct me if my date is wrong. When we were drawing up the first plans, there was talk of multiple aircraft carriers. Why three? Now I must explain three, because one for the west coast, one for the east coast, and one would be there for some rest and refit. Because if the crew has to take some rest and refit also, if the two crews are sailing, one on the east and one on the west perpetually, dominating as Commander Abhijit says, and I also believe I agree with him entirely, then the third has to be resting and recuperating and refitting the aircraft carrier. So you need three, and we have spoken about multiple times that they need three of those, because if you want to say that you have to be matching China, if not countering China, you need this floating deck out there at sea. People have been talking of using Andaman as a static aircraft carrier. Well, there are 4 bases of Andaman at the moment. The 4th one, Baz, is being extended, as I learned. So a static aircraft carrier means nothing. It is just a launch pad, yes. It can be used as a fuel base, can be used as a refuel base. But to say that Andaman's islands are like a floating static airbase, static aircraft carrier, it will be damn incorrect. I think we should just focus on having the third aircraft carrier. And I'm sure the Navy has quickly decided what they want. We also are going to shift technologies from what we are using, the traditional 50-year technology called the short takeoff and landing. We use a ski jump. And we are also probably going for a new technology, which will be catapult launch of aircrafts, like the Americans are doing and like the British are doing. So we have to keep that in mind, Vishal, when we look at it further.
Okay. Let me bring in Admiral Sinha once again here. Admiral Sinha, from your perspective, this entire concept of the strategic metrics, asking for the presence of an aircraft carrier out there, or more than one or more than two there as well. Also, if you look at INS Vikrant, which we are talking about right now, in terms of its technical compatibilities with the other weapon systems, that's one. And two, if we are talking about its the kind of power or firepower it gives us, the Indian Navy specifically.
Vishal, I am completely in agreement with both my colleagues who are here on the panel. And if somebody says that aircraft carrier are vulnerable, I would personally like to know that once you wear a uniform, who's not vulnerable? You tell me a platform, you tell me a human being, and I'll tell you that how he's vulnerable. We lost one pilot very recently, very sadly. God bless his soul. I mean, he's a human being. So he ejected, but maybe something went wrong and he didn't survive. One survived. So as far as this vulnerability is concerned, it is just with this. Sea denial is perfectly all right to say that it is a submarine role, but sea control you cannot have without an aircraft carrier. When you have such a huge sea, Vishal, that the 3,000 kilometers as the sort of just about ballpark width of Indian Ocean at the shortest point, and you want to dominate. Also, let's not forget, whether China is there or China is not there, it is immaterial, because if you have to exercise sea control near the choke points, you will have to have the aircraft carrier. And therefore, in early 60s itself, when the first aircraft carrier came, I think Ajay is absolutely right. I think it's in late 50, 54, 55, that the first plan, which was totally an Indian Navy plan, it said that we will have this multiple aircraft carrier, at least one on each seaboard. And look at the force, that if it is right in the middle of Arabian Sea, it will have 750 kilometers on either side, and also the Makran coast under its covering area, without coming into the strike range of the aircraft which our adversaries had at that time, or maybe what they have even now. So we are talking about a concept of fighting battle, and concept of fighting battle with the aircraft carrier has been in our sort of grains in our blood. We started operating in 1960. I personally have flown about 20 years from the carrier. All 3 carriers have flown, and I cannot imagine a Navy which is going to run without an aircraft carrier, Vishal.
Okay, and what are the unique features as far as INS Vikrant is concerned, which give that more elbow room or more maneuvering power to the Indian Navy in terms of the capabilities out there we're talking about?
Yeah, there are 2-3 things. One is the propulsion system is very robust. LM 2500 is a very proven engine, and there are 4 of them. It's got 4 propellers. It has got 2 rudders. So I would presume it will come out in the sea trial that it will be one of the fastest turning aircraft carrier. Therefore, alteration of course into the wind for launching the aircraft and taking and landing aircraft, it'll be much quicker and much faster without disturbing the entire big formations. That is one tactical advantage. The second one is that, the radar systems which are being fitted, they are quite, the distances that it looks is quite far. And therefore, you can have your cap at much larger distance, or you can monitor the strike aircraft for that much larger. The aircraft will have a data link system which can also use our GSAT-7 satellite, which will, be communicating with your ship from, God knows, nearly 3,000 kilometers. It covers the entire Indian Ocean. In fact, I personally spoke from Bombay to one of my ships in my first call, which was in Mediterranean. So I think that, we must not underestimate ourselves. Yes, budget will be a constraint. Fine, you go slow. But you cannot say that we don't need it. It means that you're passing a judgment. And I would think that passing a judgment, we should be careful. I've written a number of times. Yesterday, in fact, Abhijit tweeted somewhere, and I did mention that, these kind of debates keep coming on and off. And just to give you an example, which I've given on your channel as well, Vishal, we had this John Lehman, who was the Secretary Navy of United States Armed Forces, Navy. And when he was not, sort of secretary, he wrote against aircraft carriers to the hilt. And President Reagan made him the Secretary Navy. He came back, and he is the man who issued the policy letter that US Navy will be a minimum 12 carrier Navy. So there you are. A guy at the level of senator, a guy at the level of secretary, they keep coming back to this conclusion. The problem is not that. Problem is, Vishal, let me just speak the last line. There are a lot of armchair strategists who start devising the strategy without having been on an aircraft carrier, without having been at sea. So I'm afraid that we'll have to be take some professional view. And right now the Chief of the Naval Staff is the biggest professional to the government. If he says that we are a Navy of 3 carrier, well, it will be 3 aircraft carrier Navy.
Okay, definitely. And you've been there and done that in terms of having a professional viewpoint and an expert viewpoint. And indeed, as you pointed out, those who are in the decision-making process would definitely give weightage to all opinions and come to a considered decision. Let's now move back to the indigenous aspect of INS Vikrant, and that is really, really important here, both from the Indian Navy's perspective as well as the overall policy of Make in India, which we are talking about. Commander Abhijit, how do you look at the entire indigenous aspect of INS Vikrant, because that makes it really, really important and also pushes that envelope when we are talking about the need for one more, because it doesn't have to be bought from outside. We can make it ourselves now.
Look, the indigenous aspect is really significant, and I actually do have a comment or two to offer on that. But before I get onto that, there's 2 aspects that I need to point out. To be fair to the critics of the aircraft carrier, one of the things that we need to be mindful of, and also need to have a little sort of in-depth discussion over, is that the aircraft carrier, a third one, is going to be a really expensive proposition. This aircraft carrier, the INS Vikrant, when we finally get its air complement, etc., it will be, somewhere in the region of about $10 billion. And if we get a third one, by some estimates, it would be somewhere between $15 to $17 billion. Now, that's a huge amount of money. But really, the answer to the critics, when they point to the fact that this is such an expensive platform, is that you don't need too many of them. You just need 3 of them. We already have 2. We just need 1 more. Moreover, the more important point that that I should have pointed out earlier is that the aircraft carrier as a platform has utility both in war and in peacetime. It has this unique capability of shifting the psychological balance in a way that no other platform can. And the aircraft carrier does it in ways that is amenable to adversaries, and it's amenable to friends and partners. So if you have an aircraft carrier floating around in some distant littorals, it is not seen to be a threat in the same way as it would if there was a submarine in those waters. Submarines are seen to be provocative. Submarines are seen to be, platforms that are operating with malign intent. Aircraft carriers have a benign quality about them in peacetime. And they can also be used for benign activities. For instance, the US Navy has used its aircraft carriers for HADR missions. They have used it for showing the flag. There's so much more that you can achieve with an aircraft carrier in peacetime. So, if the Navy didn't have an aircraft carrier, we would relegate ourselves to the level of, say, a Pakistan.
Okay.
Or a smaller country in there. But, the fact that we're developing this platform means we can project our intent, we can project national power and pride, and we can do it in ways that other countries can accept. It's very digestible to them. On the indigenous aspect, let me just say 2 or 3 things. I think this is a remarkable first for the Indian Navy. The fact that we have, it's taken a long time, and I'm in complete agreement with what Ajay says that this should have happened much earlier. The fact that we laid the keel in 2009, this was floated in 2013, this could probably have happened earlier. But I think that developing an aircraft carrier indigenously is a very tedious proposition. And the fact that we have done it by ourselves points to better times ahead. I think with regard to the third aircraft carrier, some experts have pointed out, if we develop the indigenous capability in the way that we have developed so far,